Hey everybody, this is Deb Scannell. I thought I would do hopefully what would be a quick screencast, not quite a tutorial, but just more of an overview from a home I just recently shot. And I'm going to go through this quickly, and what this is meant for are my luxury listings, properties that I shoot that are luxury in nature. Maybe it's the setting, maybe it's the value of the home, so forth. And what I hope to be able to show is the difference between just shooting and quickly putting together something in Lightroom that could be exported and looks fine on the web, and the level of detail that I go through in a relatively short amount of time and produce files for clients that want them to look good on the web as well as for print. A lot of these things get printed, and for instance, this little thing up here in the corner is called a sensor. It's a dust spot, and it's dust that gets on your sensor when you change lenses. Air particles, stuff gets in there. Especially I shoot on a Sony camera, mirrorless, the A7R II, and that happens constantly because you don't have a mirror in front of it to protect it. Anyway, I'm going to keep this as tech-free as possible and simple. And what I did is, after the shoot was done and I kind of went through some of this, I still have to put a fire in here. And let me just give you some quick highlights of this particular shoot. This is the downstairs area. Here we're upstairs in the kitchen, the dining room. You want to make sure you have a beautiful view. Some of the living room shots. And I blend augmented light, which is my flash, very powerful flashes at that, as well as my natural light. And I blend them in a way that's artistically done, that renders a natural feel with no unwanted shadows produced by flash up on the ceiling. Only natural shadows like this, because the sun or the light's coming in from this direction, you would normally have a shadow on this side. And there it is. But you can still see a beautiful, crisp, clean woodwork around the window. The mullions are clean. They're free of that fuzzy haloing that you see. You may not know what it's called as a real estate agent. Us photographers know that is referred to as many things. You'll get chromatic aberration from the contrast of the inside and the outside being dark and light. You'll get this purple and haloing, a fuzziness around the window that you cannot get out no matter what you do. So when it's properly shot on the inside, you'll render a beautiful outside. Now this is still winter, so we don't have beautiful green and it doesn't look lush outside, but you can still see the blue sky, the white clouds, and the mountains. So let's move on, just go through kind of some of these quickly. Yeah. Anyway, this particular job is about these last few shots here that I'm getting ready to excuse me, let's get back to the end. Here we are. Okay, so here's the outside shot. So I bracketed these, and this is kind of normal exposure. This is what the camera thinks is normal. This is a little darker. Now we're getting some detail in the sky. This is no detail in the sky, and we're losing our trees, but we have a good exposure on the front of the house. Here's a darker exposure, which gives you a gorgeous sky, beautiful details in the trees, but you see nothing on the front of the house. And this, of course, is even more overexposed. And this gives you probably an unusable file, but because I shoot the Sonys and the sensors are cutting edge and amazing, I can really manipulate this file and have it be what I want. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've taken these four shots right here in Lightroom. I've merged them together into one. Now this is deliverable for most agents. They'd be totally fine with this. Of course I need to do some straightening and things like that. But I take it out of Lightroom into Photoshop, and I do this with every single one of my images, no matter what it is. An interior shot, a laundry room, an ancillary room, something that would otherwise be considered not important. And each and every image gets hand processed one by one. And that's why it takes just a little bit longer, and maybe my prices are just a little bit higher than what you would find with someone that would just produce this file, if that, and send it out and have it be on its way. I am not knocking that style at all. It's quick It's deliverable. It's absolutely respectable and fine, especially for the money. But for somewhere between $50 to $75, maybe even $100 more, you can produce a file that will print clean, free of things like this, sensor dust and stuff like that, because believe me, when you print it, it will definitely show. So I've taken this file and I've put it in Photoshop. Now here's my typical workflow, and this is the final image. But let's go all the way down to the bottom here. This is the same file that came in from Lightroom. I hope you're all following along here. I'm trying to keep this quick and simple. So the first thing I do when I bring it in is I throw a curves level adjustment. So you can see the difference here. Curves level, no curves. Just punches up the clarity a bit and creates a little bit more contrast. Now there's a series of things I have here which are called luminosity masks, and I'm definitely not getting into that, but they create a mask. You can see the mask right here. It's this black and white thing based on the brightness or the luminance values in the image. So you can see once I applied it, I did a 0 zone, or zone 0, and targeted mainly the darker things. I felt they were a little too dark. Boom, lighter. Next is a curves. Again, brightening it up just a little bit more. Here we go with another curves. What I've done is I've deepened down the sky a little bit, and you can see my mask over here. I've literally brushed in some darkening of the sky, and it is kind of offset because this was about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We had finished doing a video, and I was wrapping up my shoot, my stills, and the sun was right here. And actually, I really wanted to be further away so I can get more of the skyline here, but if I would have stepped back one more foot, you would have seen the sun, and it would have produced a star effect, which is kind of neat, but I don't find it desirable for real estate MLS listings. So I pushed in a little bit, literally moved forward, and made sure that it was out of it. But as you can see, still produces some flare up here. This one is a little bit, all right, so let's see, let's go back. So we got that. I darkened it down a little bit more, brought in some more detail. Now I brightened up the exposure, okay? Before, after. I've taken exposure and I increased it and then I masked it in. You can see all of these little black squares here are all masks. That means I am hand applying the effect I want. So I increase the exposure, but I'm curtailing it and restricting it to the areas that I only want it. So before, after. Next up is another curves adjustment, which you probably won't be able to see. It was more of a, see how it has this little bit of a purpley reddish thing going on? It was kind of bothering me. I tamed that down a little bit right there. What else did I do? Let's see. Okay, I did a highlights adjustment, so I'm pulling back more detail. Mainly look right in here. Ready? And look at this cloud right here. Now, there you go. You guys may be thinking this is really persnickety, and is this, you know, does it really matter for real estate because the shelf life is so short? I can't produce a file that I know is less than its best. Now, even my basic shoots, this would be a premium shoot, but my basic shoots are shot by my assistant, and he has been trained by me for quite a time, and he produces files very similar. Of course, they're less money, so he doesn't go into quite the amount of detail on site and in post-production, but still delivers a file that, in my opinion, blows away any other basic shoot out there for the money. All right, so let's continue on. Then I added a little bit of a glow, which this is probably not going to come through. This is my punch contrast right there. It really clarifies edges and creates a dynamic scene. Now I'm toning down the blue. Look up here in this corner. I felt it was a little punchy, so we just brought that back again with a mask. What I did is I went to the blue channel, I reduced the saturation, and then I masked it in where I wanted it only. We have another hue and saturation here. I can't remember. Oh, this one is for yellows. Notice all the yellow on the house. I just felt it was too yellow. So I decreased the yellow channel, put a mask on it, and took out all of the yellow, hand-painted the yellow, and you can see that right here on this mask. Next up, overall slight punch on vibrance, and I hand-painted it in the mask, as you can see here. This is basically, I went straight up here, along this green, and hit these greens right here, the bushes. Next up is an overall glow, which was used very lightly, And I'm not going to get into the glows I use. They're a little bit complicated. But next up, keeping your eye up here, and this is it's a spot healing for the dust spots. You don't always see them. And actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do this one for you. I'm going to delete this layer. Here, let's do it this way. We'll just hit delete. Okay, so now we have the dust spots. But in my eye, I only see like one way up here, another one right there, and right here. Now, you might be saying, you know, Deb, really, you're not going to see that. Well, maybe you'll see this one on the MLS. But here is the thing. When you go to print these, you will notice everything, and it's important to not have it there. I go to these lengths when I shoot and when I edit to make sure that the file is as clean as possible. So here we go. These are my little action shortcuts that I have. This creates a black and white layer that you can now see them, all right? But if we want to really see them, we could affect it by changing things here. See, now we really see them. Boom, 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 boom. So we go back to the heal and clone layer. Use my J tool here. And gone, gone, gone. Sometimes you got to hit it twice. You guys are watching this live. Bear with me here just a minute. We got a few more. And trust me, when you print these things large, oh my gosh, do they show. And it's terrible. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it later. You just kind of want to kick yourself like, oh no, they don't really show up until you do this type of an alteration curve to the sky. And they mainly show up in the sky. Now, there's probably some here. You're never going to see that because you have texture there. The sky doesn't have any texture unless you have a lot of clouds. All right, that's good enough for right now. And then what I do is just close that off, and we're back. And we have a beautiful, clean sky. So from here, I would do a tiny bit of sharpening, but basically that's it. I wanted to keep this short. We're just at about over 12 minutes, and please contact me for bookings. And if you have any questions, you can always reach me by phone. 828-808-7824 is my cell, or just contact me at deborahscannellphotography.com. And if you want my email, it's deb@deborahscannellphotography.com. Look forward to shooting for you guys in the near future. And hopefully you got a little something out of this, and it expressed in some level of detail what some of the differences are and why we all are different prices. Okay, thanks, and you guys enjoy.